Hello everyone and welcome back to Scheduling in Time Simplicity. Today we're going to take a look at how to deal with drop requests and pickup requests for the employees. So as a system administrator, there's a few things that you're going to want to turn on for the client before they can use this feature. And I think we covered it in the initial setup, but we're just going to go ahead and show you a few things here to get them started. So to start off, you'll go to Roles right here, and under the Employee role, you can set different roles to different employees, but for the default here, this is what we're going to be using for most employees. So if we want to allow certain employees the access and the ability to do drop and pickup requests, we can set a certain number of employees to be able to do that, and then another group to have that restriction. But then right down here, you'll have these two options. You have the drop shift and pickup shift. These are different from the self-schedule and shift swap. Right now, shift swap is not an active feature in Time Simplicity. It's coming at some point, but this is something right now that is not active yet. Self-schedule, we covered that as well. That's also something that this is more for pre-published schedules to let the employees go out and set their own schedules, pick up shifts without manager approval. Once the schedule is published, however, the shift drop and pickup shift are the two ways that they can manage their schedules and request to have changes made to their schedules. So we'll go ahead and save that, and then we'll just come over here to Employee Portal Features right here. So there's a few things we want to do and add in here, and these are making adjustments. So the roles are giving them access to it, and then in the portal features, this is where we define what they're going to have access to specifically. These right here actually default to 0, and I think you have this as 0, but what this is what we're doing right here. Anything below this drop shift reminder is basically how the employee is going to be able to use the system and deal with those drop and pickup shift requests. So right here we have, this is the message that will pop up when they request to drop a shift. It just kind of reminds them that they're still responsible for that shift until it's picked up and approved by their manager. So you can put whatever you want in here. This is, again, for freeform, you can change and adjust what you want. I think it defaults to be picked up. It says until it's picked up and approved, but you can add by your manager to add a little more emphasis, making sure they know that it can't just be picked up or requested to be picked up by another employee. It has to be approved by the manager. This disable drop shifts. This is the threshold that employees wouldn't be able to request to drop a shift anymore. So if we put in 24 or 48 hours in here, anytime it's within that 24-hour period of that shift, they wouldn't be able to request to drop that shift any longer. So it's just a way to lock it out, keep it so that if it's that close to a shift, we could even put up here, if it's within 24 hours, call your manager for approval or for a schedule change. Right here you have partial drop shift. So this allows them to do either an all or nothing type thing. So we can say if we want to let them drop partial shifts, or we only want them to drop the entire shift. If we were going to allow them to drop partial shifts, there's a couple little things you'd want to add in here. The first one is this minimum shift length. So if you have or live in a state that has a minimum compliance rule where they have to work a certain number of hours for a shift, or if they have to be offered at least a certain number of hours, this is where you could put that in here. So we would put in, if they're going to keep a shift, it has to be at least, 2 hours, we can say. And then if we want to change the interval, so this is going to be at what interval they can drop shifts, whether it's a half hour, 15 minutes, only in hour increments, we would put that right here. So if we wanted to let them drop up to half-hour increments, we can put that right there. This pickup shift overtime rule, this is really nice when you're dealing with people that cannot have overtime. If you don't want employees to see a shift that would put them into overtime to request to pick it up, you could put in no overtime right here, or no over their max hours. Keep in mind that if you put no rule here, it does still go to the manager for approval. So the manager is going to be able to see a couple things. They'll be able to see how many hours that employee has worked for that week and whether or not that shift will put them into overtime. So if you wanted to leave it up to the managers, you can do that, and they'll be able to see that at a glance when they pull that up, when they pull that request to pick up that shift. So they can approve it or deny it, or you can just completely lock them out and say no overtime rule. And then we'll go ahead and save that. And then let's go ahead and make sure that we have some schedules in for some people. We'll go in, we're dealing with a couple ones here. So when you get a request to drop a shift, a little flag will show up right here that it hasn't been requested to be picked up yet, but this has been requested to be dropped by someone. So let's say that Martha gives you a call, or manager a call, and asks to trade shifts with Wesley. So she's working on Saturday, she got some tickets to a game, she wants to trade Wesley for this shift right here. Manager says that's fine, go ahead, and she calls Wesley. He goes to request that time off and to drop that shift. She's already requested to drop this shift, but she's also gone out and done the legwork, tried to find somebody to cover that shift for her, and she knows who she wants to call. So she calls Wesley. He's cool with that. He says, okay, I'll work your Saturday, just request to drop a shift, and I'll drop mine. So what he does, he would go and log into his time card and go into the schedule here. And then what he'll do is he'll just click on the day that he wants to drop, or he wants to request to drop. So he'll just hit drop shift right here. And then what it comes up with is a couple different options right here. So you have drop full shift. These go back to what we had set up in the dashboard. You have drop full shift, drop first part of shift, or drop the last part of shift. If we had that minimum threshold that they had to keep at least 2 hours, it would let him drop off up to at least 2 hours of his shift. He would have to keep, if he kept part of his schedule, he would have to keep at least 2 hours of his shift. If he tried to drop the first part of his shift, it would make him keep at least the last 2 hours of his shift. And same thing with this drop last part. It would make him keep at least 2 hours of the first part of his shift. So we're just going to drop the full shift here, and we're going to put in trading with Martha. So we'll hit continue. And then it brings up that dialog box that we had put in there. So it says that he's still responsible for it until it's approved by his manager. We'll hit save. And it says request has been submitted. So now he has this request that's been submitted. He can actually even go up into his request right here and look at that and see, this is I've requested a drop for these times, trading with Martha here. And then what he'll want to do is, because he's agreed to pick up her shift, he'll come up here and pick up shift. And then if you notice, it brings up a few different options. It also has, in addition to this drop request that Martha has put in for trading with Wesley, it also has any open shifts that are there available. So anytime a manager puts an open shift after it's been published, they put an open shift into that open shift line. A text notification goes out to all the employees that can work that. So they're all going to be able to see that there's open shifts available. But because we were doing just this trade here, we're just going to go ahead and pick up Martha's. Do pickup. We just click on it and pick it up. So pick up shift selected. Yep. And it's been submitted. So a couple things here. When a drop request happens, a couple things happen. First off, a notification goes out to any eligible employees. So a notification would have actually gone out to everyone, including Wesley, that could have worked that shift. But because the manager knew that they were trading, and because they had put that thing in that line where it said trading with this person, that gives the manager the ability to go back and say, okay, this is who I want to give it to. This is where I want to assign it. Otherwise, without that, any employee that had requested to pick that up would be eligible to pick that up, and a manager wouldn't necessarily know who they were trading with or what they were doing. So it's really important, if they're going to be doing any kind of trades or anything, to put that in the notes. The other thing that happens is, again, that little red flag comes up on the scheduler view that a drop shift request has been submitted. It's that little tiny flag that shows up on that employee's shift. And then when a pickup request happens, another couple things happen. Again, it goes to, because it's been requested to be picked up, dropped and picked up, a message goes to that manager's dashboard and sends them a message letting them know, hey, there is someone that's requesting to pick a shift up and someone has requested to drop that. So it gives them kind of that notification to go out, approve it, do what they need to with it once it's been done. And then let's go over. So I'm going to show you what it looks like for the manager. So we have a request to pick up and drop off. Let's go ahead and we'll log in as Martha, have her request to pick up his shift that he just requested to drop off. Okay, and this is Martha's right here, and so she has a pending drop request. So we're going to click on that. Actually, we don't even need to click on that. Let's just pick up shift right here, and she has these different shifts right here. There's an open shift and then Wesley Ingalls. So she's going to pick that one up. Click on that, pick up that shift. So yes, pick up selected shift. and now both shifts have been moved. So let's go over now to the manager dashboard, and I'll show you what that looks like for the managers now. Now under here, that manager now has 2 change requests. They're both the pickup and drops for each one. So this one's, let's review it here. So this is going to be trading with Martha. So this is going back to Martha's right here. So she wants to pick up this 8-hour. We're going to go ahead and approve that. We can put in comments, say you're good, hit OK, and we can do the same thing here. So this one is coming from Martha, going back to, let's take a look at it. Wesley is offering to pick that up, so he offered at this time. This is another thing too. Right here you'll see how many hours that they are working for this week, how many hours they'll have with this shift, and how many max hours they have, in addition to the time that they offered to pick it up. So this is another thing that's really nice. When someone goes to pick up a shift, the manager will be able to see what time someone offered to pick that up, so they can take that in a first come first serve. If somebody is really wanting to get that shift and they were the first one to jump on it, then that manager can then go ahead and say, yep, they were the first one. We'll hit approve. Again, you're good. Hit OK, and it's done. Now once that happens, a couple other things happen right here. So when a pickup is approved, or when a manager reassigns the shift, so they could have reassigned that to someone else in the scheduler. They could have just taken that shift and moved it to someone else. But a couple things happen here. One, the notification is sent to any affected employees. So any employee that's affected, whether it's removing or picking that up, a notification will go out to that employee letting them know that their schedule has changed. So if it was a drop or a reassign, again, both employees would be notified of that. And then lastly, the shift is moved, so if it's basically moved to those employees, and it becomes that new employee's responsibility to cover that shift. So each employee would be able to see that represented in their schedule. So if we go back to, again, we'll just go back, last thing here, to Wesley's. Let's log in. Let's just go to Martha's here. And we go into his schedule. We'll see that his schedule has now changed from Friday to Saturday. So he has picked up her shift, and in hers it would show up on Friday right here. So the requests, they're gone, they're approved and done, and that is accurately reflecting that employee's schedule. I hope this helps, and thanks for watching, and have a great day.